The project began when we secured a grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund, which very generously enabled us to secure the future of the Wollaton Library Collection here at the University of Nottingham. This was something that really opened opportunities for us to do things that we'd wanted to do for some time. The principal issue that has been a problem about this collection is that all of the items in it are very fragile. The manuscripts in question are important manuscripts, important survivals from the Middle Ages. And one of the things that everybody who's seen the collection comments on, who knows anything about physical artefacts of the Middle Ages, is how unusual it is to find not just one but a whole collection of material that has been so little disturbed since the Middle Ages. So we knew that first and foremost at the heart of this project was going to be tackling for once this preservation and conservation issue. And what we decided from the beginning on the basis of expert advice we got was that we would do the minimum amount of invasive conservation work. In other words, we'd try to stabilise pigments and flatten particularly badly cockled parchment and make the structures safe. But we wouldn't actually do restoration binding.
I'm opening it from the back because the straps at the front make it slightly awkward to hold.
The result of this, of course, and this has been a hugely successful part of the project, it enabled us to assess the condition of the manuscripts in much greater detail, to bring in expertise from a number of places, to use our own staff and thereby increase their skills hugely, in fact, on the work. And at the end of this, we were able actually safely to display these manuscripts. But they do remain fragile, because what we've done is to support their original medieval structures rather than replace them. So they still have to be handled extremely carefully and are still very vulnerable to damage in the future. At the start of the project, we had fairly simple objectives. Probably, I think, we could bring them down to just really three. One was to make the manuscripts safe for the future. One was to make them accessible, and that we knew from the start would have to be almost primarily in a surrogate form, in a copy form, because of the question of their fragility. So from the start we worked out how we might be able to microfilm and to digitise. In fact, we have digitised the manuscripts and generated microfilm long-term preservation copies from those digital images. And then the third element was, and this was where the Heritage Lottery was particularly helpful to us, because of course they're very keenly interested that if they support projects like this, that the result is to raise public awareness of the heritage in question. And initially this did seem to us quite challenging, because on the face of it these medieval manuscripts are very specialist. They're in a number of different languages: French, Old French, Latin, Middle English, not easily accessible for the average person. And the kind of world that they describe and come from is also now actually quite foreign to most people. It's hard to believe that these were actually manuscripts that belonged to this part of the country, and would have been the kind of things that people read. So that did seem very challenging. And we basically thought of it in terms of, well, yes, we'll do an exhibition and we'll do a leaflet. But we were very unsure at that stage whether we could make that, whether we could make the message really relevant to young people, which is what we were hoping to do, and to the general public. And I think this has been really one of the key elements in the project, is all of our work on that outreach and interpretation, which has really surprised us. There is a huge appetite for good quality information and images that are quite challenging to understand and interpret.
The word Lancelot appears just above the mark there.
And just to give one example, one of them would have been language. That, of course, we knew that there were a number of different languages in question here, and that indeed different languages were spoken in England at this time. I think what we realised at one stage is that actually what we were not simply describing what was past, but we actually were in a continuum, and this sort of mingling of different cultures and different traditions is of course still going on today in this country, and we have schools and communities today where different languages are spoken, and it was partly that it was quite obvious that that's how some of the people who came to the exhibition were receiving this. The appetite that we discovered among local people for access to the collection and for knowledge about it really came out during the period of the exhibition, and what it was particularly focused on, I think, was on schools and young people, partly because we had made an effort to contact them, partly because the Lakeside Arts Centre has a very active education programme, and the education officer had worked very hard. She was able to secure some funding and worked with one particular local school. The end result of this was to create this resource, Trove, which is a DVD based on the collection. But it's not just about the collection, it's about the children's perception of what we were doing in looking after this collection and others like it.
This is where the special collections are kept.
We knew that it was going to be necessary to provide some kind of skills units to help those who are beginning to want to know more about the Middle Ages. We do find, I mean, we have other medieval collections here, and we do find when people come to use them, they sometimes are really quite intimidated initially because they are really very different. So we, in the course of this project, are creating 3 skills units that will be also on our website. And one of them is about reading and understanding the medieval documents. One of them is about the form of the book, and we're working actually quite closely with the School of English on that one. They've given us some help, and I think some of our stuff is very relevant to their work too. And then the third one is on care and handling, and that is not just about the medieval heritage, but it's about all of the manuscripts we hold and the issues of preservation. And the final thing that we will be delivering on the website is a resource aimed at local schools, and we're working on that with a colleague out of our own School of Education here to develop sort of lesson plans based on the medieval collection and this project, which will be relevant to the curriculum.